Hey everybody, I'm Amy Robbins, and here we are again, find ourselves in the wake of yet another school shooting and in the wake of yet another gun control debate. Here we are less than 24 hours after the most devastating day many of these parents and loved ones will ever experience. And what is so sad to me is that we can't even give them one day, just one day, to grieve and process this before the insensitive buffoonery begins. This tragedy, like many others, is like clockwork for many. It's almost as if people are sitting around waiting for the next one to happen, because as soon as it does, it is immediate. Ban AR-15s this. We need universal background checks that. Stricter regulations to keep guns out of dangerous people's hands this. Terror watch list that. And here we go again, trying to argue logic in a situation that so easily only fights logic with emotion. We want to constantly talk about the tool used to kill instead of the person behind the tool. Let me ask the gun control group a question. Has your gun ever picked itself up and killed someone? Okay, well that may be unfair because most of you are too terrified of them to even pick one up, let alone own one. But let me give you a little hint. They don't. You see, you don't like talking about the evil, deranged person behind the gun because evil is a lot harder to regulate. There's one party that's the party of government control and regulations, but those have never stopped evil people from carrying out the evil that is in their hearts. So many of you want to talk about banning this gun and banning that person from owning one, but let me ask you, how well has that worked in Chicago? Don't lecture us, Don Lemon. I think it's sad that you choose each school shooting to push your agenda when you could get this outraged each and every single day by the gun violence that plagues Chicago, and yet you don't. You know why you don't? It's selective moral outrage, Don, and it's sickening, and here's why. Because the strictest gun laws in this country aren't keeping guns out of the hands of dangerous people. As a consequence of those strict laws, the people who actually need a gun to defend and protect themselves from the bad guys that are getting guns can't get them. Instead, what is their option? Pick up the phone and call a good guy with a gun to come to the rescue, which unfortunately is usually a little too late. So more regulation hasn't worked. Thank God for our law enforcement officers, but they can't be everywhere at one time. We need people to start standing up and protecting themselves. So let's talk about some of the other so-called common sense measures we could take to prevent this. It wasn't 10 minutes after the shooting aired that low information commentators were once again spewing misinformation about how people on the terror watch list are still able to get guns. And they say, well, how is this happening? This shouldn't be happening. It would be common sense to keep those from getting guns, right? Well, first off, yet again, that wouldn't have prevented this particular shooting or any other school shootings because none of those kids were on the terror watch list. But that's too much fact for those people, and yet they want to passionately speak about it as if it pertains to this situation. So let's break down the fallacy that exists so those of you who only get your information from bad commentators in the media can actually understand what's going on when it comes to this terror watch list. First off, did you know that there's no due process of law for anyone to actually get on that watch list? The government can simply place you on that list as they see fit. And if the left had its way, anyone on that list would have their Second Amendment rights stripped away while overriding their Fifth Amendment right. In other words, if the government decided that they don't like my blog because I show you how to conceal carry in a fashionable way, or maybe because I have way too many gun pictures on my Instagram page, they could place me on that list for reasons they find suspicious. Bam. If the left had their way, I would no longer be able to keep my guns or buy any more legally without any sort of trial and being able to prove my innocence that I am not a terrorist, but in fact a law-abiding US citizen that simply enjoys exercising her rights. So, next time you hear about this terror watch list and the outrage the left seems to project that people who are on it can still get guns, think it through. And just think that you could be on that list and never even know it and suddenly have your rights stripped away if they get their way. So what would work? I mean, there's people that never even want to explore any other option other than confiscation and more regulation. Let's start with some truly common sense measures, such as arming and training our teachers. How about we encourage our kids to join together, be courageous, and fight back? How about metal detectors in all the schools, locking every single door, increasing school budgets to include multiple armed security guards on every school campus relative to that campus's size? Do you know if that teacher in that room would have been armed and trained, the outcome could have been completely different. Instead, what do? We put no guns allowed signs outside our campus doors and expect people to follow those rules. Well, which most do, except for the criminal who is going to disregard the law. This madness needs to be stopped. Arm and train our teachers now. Give them the training that they need, and let's stop giving these deranged lunatics open access to wreak havoc in our hallways. And in the end of the day, if emotion and logic could sit down and have a civil conversation about what could be done to prevent this without infringing on law-abiding citizens' rights, we might be able to get somewhere in this country. But until then, I stand with the law-abiding American citizens that will fight to push back any unlawful regulation that might be trying to get shoved down our throats.